Okay, I'd like to call to order the Westerly Public Schools School Building Subcommittee meeting for Wednesday, April 9th, 2025. Time is 6:02. Members present are Mark Garceau, Audrey Fulbert, Chris Lund, Cindy Kirchhoff, Mike Ober, Daniel Lathrop, Mark McKinnon, and myself, Justin Hopkins. We also have John Scheib from NCA and Ashley Prester from DBBW. Would like to entertain a motion to move item number 6 up to before approval of meeting minutes, item number 3, so that we can take care of some business with some subcommittee members that need to leave a little early.
So moved.
Second. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so we are at item number 6, owner's project manager / architect update. Now, Deb did provide an update, but which is mostly stuff that's going to be covered by John and Ashley, and we'll go over the invoices under item number 5. So with that, I think if we can talk State Street first.
Sure. So we have just an update. 2 things we wanted to go over. One is an update just generally on overall where construction is, and then secondly, a little overview of the more or less how the entry tower can look. So again, John Scheib, Northeast Collaborative Architects, we're again TSKP and NCA. We're tag teaming the construction effort on this. O&G construction is moving along pretty well. Go to the next one here. So basically, you know, what you saw last time, I think Randall did an overview back in November for you. So just to bring you along with where that is. Again, building construction, had started right about August 26th and on schedule for completion in April 26th. You know, we're about a year away from completion. O&G reports that they are on schedule. Generally, I think things are moving along very well. With a project like this, some things advance more rapidly than others, and some things don't necessarily move along as quickly as you'd expect. But in the end, I think the critical path schedule has them finishing on time. And we would generally agree with that. There's going to be, well, we'll go through some of the images, but overall, everything you saw on the schedule originally is still intact. So on the next image, just keeping in mind again that the site is bifurcated with the existing school to the south and the construction area to the north. Multiple access points. I think O&G was able to reopen the access point from Hollis Street recently. But overall, construction fence generally remains right around the perimeter of the existing building. And we have some images of progress as to how things have gone here. So on the next slide, this is more or less looking right at what will be the main entry, but close up. Everything is close up because you're right against the fences right to your back here. So this is that tower element that we're going to talk about. And right now you see it with all the steel. It looks much higher than it will, because one of the key things that's going to start happening next week is all the angled roof trusses are going to start going in. So that's where you'll get a full sense of the volume of the building. There have been some delays with completing concrete slabs because of some weather, colder and wetter than expected over the last couple of weeks. But they're ready to start catching up and get those roof trusses, those metal framed roof trusses, all going along throughout the building. So that'll start to fill in some of the volume you see here as far as the overall height goes. So a couple more images. You do start to see not just the structural steel now, but the metal stud framing going on and some of the exterior sheathing going on. This is more or less from Hollis Street, you know, close against the C wing of the building here. So right about here, looking towards the tower element. And then one more from inside the gym. You can start to see that they had the slab had recently been poured in the gym area, which was really a cool effect of how that came out after it rained. But overall, you can see the metal stud framing again on the inside now, and the sheathing, the exterior sheathing. So that's why you start to see that if you're driving south on Hollis, you see like the blue exterior of the building. And that's just the sheathing. From there, the exterior, the full exterior envelope gets added to that. You get a sense of the size of this overall opening that we have on the east end of the gym. That gets filled in with some window and some infill panels, some translucent window panels that bring translucent light into the gym, but not direct daylight. So that's, are there any questions about where we are in the process here? Again, once those roof trusses start swinging, they keep calling it swinging because they're going to have another, they're going to just start picking the roof trusses and start laying them on top of all the structural steel. And that's where you'll start to get a sense of how big the volume of the building is. It should take, I think they said 4 to 5 weeks to get all the roof trusses on, because in some areas they have to do some wall, they still have to do some wall metal studs in order to get some of those roof trusses at the west end of the building up.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it's exciting. It's always exciting to see things coming together, and it's encouraging. All right, so next, we had we wanted to talk a little bit more about the entry tower element and kind of the adornment of that. So just to backtrack a little bit, when the construction documents were completed and when O&G did the project, there was a clock intended for this tower. The clock that was originally bid would have required some kind of access from the back, and we knew that that was going to be a bit of a maintenance issue, access issue. We're trying we're not trying to alleviate the need that anybody would ever need to go up above into that attic space. We were thinking of an access panel, like from this side to get in. So overall, though, one of the first things we did as it became apparent that there could be some challenges was to look at a different clock. And so the clock we're showing now is one that there is a smaller section of the clock face that is removable from the front. So in other words, in terms of how you would service this, is you'd have an articulating arm boom lift parked out here, and then you would go up and you'd be able to access the clock and remove that face, the section of the clock. So it's basically like where the hands are at the center point. And if it ever needed servicing, the clock manufacturer recommends or includes a first couple of years maintenance that's included with the install. And then beyond that, that kind of gets you past the warranty period to make sure that everything's working properly. And then after that, there's very little expected maintenance on the clock. It runs off power in the building. It can be, again, accessed from the front face. Should not be.
How do you set up the daylight savings?
What's that?
How do you set up the daylight savings?
So I believe the controls are all automated, and the controls are going to be in the office. So you can set the time for remotely. You don't have to set the time from inside or at the face of the clock.
Would you mind confirming that?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's a big piece. Thank you.
And to repair the clock, you'd have to get like a ladder, and someone would have to go up. Is that
A
right?
ladder or a boom lift.
Do we have a boom lift?
No.
Okay.
So this came up, I think, with review with Mark and Audrey, related to, the feasibility of being able to service it And then I think the question came up, I think probably from you, right? Do we even want to clock
Well,
there?
My concern is like you pull up and the time is wrong. Like that's so embarrassing. Like that's your first view of the school. So as long as it's very easy to adjust the time from inside, I think a clock is a classic look. But I would hate to have people come up and see the wrong times. Just
Right.
sends a message.
So we did a couple of, we'll look at a couple of options here. The next slide shows what it might look like if we added some lettering. This is, just some standoff letters. It is a little challenging to put, to get a large scale letters on here because the width of this tower element is pretty narrow. But I think it could still work because you could have you would be able to see that from the street. One thing you have to keep in mind is there is out at State Street, there is a ground mounted sign for the school right there at the street. The building is set much further back than the current building, but at least adding some lettering would give it a, we think would also make the tower element look fairly nice.
What's your school mascot?
You're the Sharks, which, nice now, but I don't know if they'll always be the Sharks.
Then we did, as another option, we took a look at the town seal. It is an oval. It's pretty hard to read up high, but at least whether or not that's another option you wanted to consider was the town seal, so that again you had no moving parts or you wouldn't have to worry about that notion of the clock reading the wrong time because it wouldn't be a clock. You could do this with the letters as well. We didn't do a fourth image, but you can imagine the State Street School lettering on the sign. Now, if we can go back 2 slides to the clock just by itself. One thing so O&G, just to bring this back to kind of construction world, O&G owns the clock. It was in their bid. They have a number set aside in their schedule of values for the clock. They also, they shared some concerns about accessibility and the idea of going to a different clock with a removable face element is going to be a minor change from what was bid. We've talked to the clock manufacturer about rough order of magnitude on what the difference is, and it was about $1,500. But I don't want to say that that's what O&G is going to charge us, because O&G has some pluses and minuses to work out with the clock and how that might play into it. If we were to go away from the clock in its entirety, we would submit a change request for O&G. And if we were to switch to the town seal or add lettering of any kind, then those would be additional costs, or in the case of the town seal itself would be an additional cost. We get a credit for the clock. We don't know yet too much what those pluses and minuses are. That's where, but the good news is that gives you kind of another shot at the apple here, is we can put in a proposal request to add letters, to switch it out for the seal. We can put in a proposal request for any of those things, and then you get one more shot at it, because then once we're talking numbers, O&G would present some proposed change order to decide whether or not it was of the right value to the committee to make a change.
Can you describe what the original contemplated clock looked like? My understanding is that was a little more understated, right? It used the surface of the tower as kind of the background of the clock, correct? And it was more just some arms that would articulate.
Yeah. Now I think the clock had a very interesting life cycle here, because if we go back to the original slide of the original rendering that we showed at the start of this, it's kind of a hybrid of this, because the original clock was going to have hands and not even numerical indicators, but just like tick mark indicators directly applied to the tower. So that was where something more like, actually, let's go back one more
But the,
image.
but the issue with that is that all of the mechanism that would
Yeah.
power the clock is behind the wall surface, which would then necessitate having to either get in the building or have an access point.
Yeah, and an access panel pretty much from the side, and that still didn't solve all the issues. After talking it through with O&G, and understanding where the fire marshal and building official would be on that issue, it just became a challenge to keep that original clock. So switching to a clock with a front face mechanism seemed to be kind of a win-win, because you get to keep the clock. It's much easier to access. Again, you still have remote controllability on the time that it's indicating, and it does have a chime as well that can be that the chime can be adjusted remotely as well.
If it's all remote, I think that sounds very doable. I know in the discussions with OMG and Mark McKinnon, like we don't even own the room equipment to have to change the time twice a year or adjust if there's like a power outage or something like that. So it became costly to maintain a clock that you couldn't manage remotely.
So I'm assuming that would be the case in the event of a power outage. There's no it's not.
We'll
battery.
confirm the battery. Well, I'll confirm that there's a battery of some kind. As well. So changing for daylight savings and battery backup. We'll confirm both of those. Let's go back to the one that had the clock. Yeah, I think that one. So I think at this point, we're looking for what kind of direction we should provide to ONG. We can do we can ask them for an A and a B. We can say, price up changing the clock, and we can ask them price up switching to a plaque. I think adding the letters or not adding the letters is kind of a separate issue at this point, whether you like them or not, or whether you think that's appropriate, given that you have a street sign, the street mounted sign that's going to say State Street School on it.
I think one of Deb's original thoughts was if State Street School could replace the clock, but what my understanding is the tower's too narrow, it wouldn't really.
Yeah, the letters
have
get
the
narrower
same-
and narrower. I mean, we are we did kind of still, the letters do start to taper, but to replace the clock, it just starts to get too narrow up there.
I wouldn't suggest the 10 black myself. Yeah, I like the clock if it's easy to use. It's a matter of how easy it is to use and how reliable it is. Because the other thing is, if it's easily reliable and we can just change it, go for it. But if we don't know if it is, that's kind of a gamble. We have no idea, right?
The plaque makes it look like a police station.
Yeah, no, I don't think parts are legible. It's just
And
looks like a.
can't really read it from that far away.
Yeah, you would have to know what it is if you were.
Yeah, if you were to put something up there that was more decorative, I think it would be something that would be more student inspired, or, something that maybe, every couple of years, close your ears, Mark, McKinnon, every couple of years maybe rotates out, depending on what school, maybe it's a school competition, let's design a new kind of emblem, but that is kind of the architectural rationale for having some kind of hierarchical element there makes sense. And the design team has proposed in the documents a clock. So, unless there's a sentiment from the district, the administration, or the building committee to change that up. I think there are a couple of questions that need to be resolved in order to be comfortable moving that forward. Like, for instance, if that power goes out at 6:22 and comes back on at 8 o'clock, do the controls allow staff to update the reading on the clock?
Is this version backlit?
I believe this version has illumination, but I'll double check that as well.
Does the school itself have, or is the school getting centralized like clock system?
Yes.
Through the technologies. So
it should be
it's just another, somebody's really just an extension of that technology. So you'd think it'd be as reliable as that.
You think the wiring and everything would go there, but I don't know that.
It's not, they're not tied together. So I'll be clear that I know for sure. They're not tied together because those clocks in classrooms run, well, some of them run on radio frequency. I believe these are going to be hardwired. I'm not 100% sure on that, but they run off of a central system and they're run through kind of they kind of run on your bell system, your PA and all that sometimes gets tied together. Whereas this is a separate like clock manufacturer that's all they do is clocks. For major public spaces and things. But-
So what can be controlled by the remote or remotely, we want to know. The time, the setting of the time, potentially the lighting can be controlled. If we, that the neighbors or something, we wanted to dim it or turn it off, that would be great to have on the remote. We want to verify what the warranty is on it. They said take us 2 years, but if we can get clarification on that, that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Chimes too. Yeah, chimes. Yeah.
Controllability of the chimes. I do know that you have controllability of the chimes, both in volume and whether it's on the hour or every 15 minutes or.
And so if the mechanism had to be serviced, you're
Mhm.
saying the base comes off, and that's ideal.
The small, there's a very small, I'm going to say, the more I touch this, I'm going to start to mess it up. But I think this is I think it's a 4-foot diameter. As the internal piece, I think is about 1 foot in diameter. And it houses the operation of the hands and that centerpiece removes so the hands and the centerpiece remove. And that's how you access everything that's operable on the clock. And then it gets put back into place. So you'll see a thin line kind of in the center of the clock as to where that is. It's not like the whole 4-foot clock comes off. It's just the centerpiece. Everything else is fixed up there.
Are there options for selection of the color, the background color?
Not sure. But we can, I know there's different options for the characters, numerical characters. We recommend something like this, something graphic like this. I don't think you're actually able to read the numbers up there if you made them actual numbers. Like the clocks inside the room will have numbers, but doing something like that here would be, I think a little challenging in terms of how you actually read the numbers. Whereas you can read the hands.
Are you doing analog clocks or digital?
Are we analog or digital in the classrooms?
I think they're analog. Not like with hands.
I wondered, I am a logistics person, not a creative person by any means. We have a lot of local artists that deal in different media. I don't know if it would be worth it to sit. We have a couple in town that deal with like iron, and I don't know if it's worth getting opinions on some kind of sculpture-y thing that can be mounted, or is it not? Is that way too creative? Are we just gonna go with
They haven't had to really throw something together.
That's what I was thinking of.
Yeah.
But there's a couple, I mean.
Yeah.
there's
So you do
different
like an
artists.
anchor.
Yeah, anchors or waves or oceany theme. I don't know if it's worth looking into, putting it out there.
I think you can always plot and do that in the future if the thing really crashes and burns.
True.
So what is the burn time here?
We would love to be able to start putting in a proposal request to O&G for whatever change we're gonna make, as soon as possible. You know, while it is a ways out, it's still now a year to completion. O&G has pretty much bought out everything in the contract, so that luckily, thankfully, saving us from some cost increases. But this is everything we can get bought out, is ideal. If, you know, we would love to have, we can come back, we have to probably come back for some things in 2 weeks anyway, so we could probably come back with an update on all of this in 2 weeks. There's no harm though from what it sounds like, there's no harm in putting a proposal request into O&G to get a number on this clock. Or if you don't think the seal is right, to just removing the clock. On the flip side, we could ask O&G for what is the value to delete the clock. That's always tough because I don't know, you get pennies on the dollar sometimes when you have to delete or change something.
Well, I think it sounds like the answer is we should get a proposal for that clock, because that's the only one we can service. We might as well get a proposal on it.
Yeah.
And we need like the information from the manufacturer on how it all, like essentially the sales pitch on the clock.
Yeah,
So if we have like a website with all the details on the clock, or something like that, yeah, just kind of the specs on the clock.
okay.
And if we have those two things, we can probably make a decision.
All right.
Can I get a better understanding of how you think the lift is on the path of the sidewalk, or do you think the lift has to be on the grass, or do you have to worry about landscaping?
It could be either.
Okay.
So it could be, and I don't think we have a tree like right there. But we do have some sloping. We do have a sloping condition here. So the lift could be right in the front, and the articulating arm goes straight up the tower, straight up the front wall. It could be on the side. It could be either one, depending on what you want to do. If the time of day is, if it happens that you need to access it right before dismissal and you need to cordon off an area to put the lift there, you know, that's possible. You have options.
And that's 28, 32 feet in the air.
I believe over 30, yeah, about 35 feet high. So it would be a 60-foot articulating arm. I think a 60-foot boom lift that was O&G's opinion as to what would do it, whether you're out here having to travel more distance or out here having to go up and over a little bit.
Rocky's Tree Service.
That's the height of the green monster, isn't it?
Yeah.
So if the clock were to, if there were be, because I've been kind of racking my brain as well about like what would be an appropriate thing to put in place. Something belongs there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whether it's a change in material, some sort of sculptural element, I think the architecture suggests that you need something that identifies its reason for being the tower.
Right.
So, you know, even if the clock was removed, I would still suggest running all the wiring and whatever control wiring would be to a back box there. So it would give the district flexibility to, if we wanted to put something up there at some point, hopefully just not a big camera. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Still have fun?
I like the clock.
I like the clock.
I do too.
All right.
We'll
So
get
there are a
all
couple of-
that, we'll get all the backup information to you in advance, but yeah, if we want to bring it to a motion next time, we're happy to do that, but we'll get you the information in advance.
Well, I think you can initiate the proposal request just because we know that it's. I mean, you should probably get a value of what it would be to remove the clock in its entirety, to keep the infrastructure in place for the
But is the
future.
clock been priced out? The clock itself?
Not this fall.
Not this one.
Right, it was a different clock. We know from the clock manufacturer what they would charge to change out from one to the other, but we need to review that with O&G to make sure that.
But this one's also probably less labor for OG. Not fixing anything, but it's just one thing you admit.
You would think, yes.
I jump in and out of the O&G conversation,
Yeah.
but I believe there was a conversation about the wiring in the back and access to it, and you can't get people in there and fire suppression, and so I don't even know if they can put wiring in that tower, just that, I feel like that was a conversation
Well, you're gonna have wiring in your attic space anyway.
of that high.
Well, not
Not gonna be able to get to it.
in the,
Okay.
Yeah.
right.
Which is why this clock is more suited to its remote location. First of all, because anything you need to get to in the future, you're getting to from the front. You don't have to go up in the tower to get to it. Okay,
Thank you.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
thanks.
Ashley.
Time is money, buddy.
So you were talking to me for a minute. All right, mine's gonna be a little more, little bit more of the same stuff. So construction update, we're at 47%. March, just to be completely open, billed about 3 to 3.5% short than what we expected this month. We asked them for a recovery. They raised the rates of April, May, and June. So they're targeting 94% right now, which is still right around where we expected 95% by the end of August. We received the construction schedules for the March update, and substantial completion is still scheduled for August 22nd. There are no, we have concerns, but there are no flags from the contractor side that are telling us that they're not going to hit that at this point. So Dunn's Corner progress includes, if you've seen the scaffoldings down on the two main facades now, so the brick is up. We're continuing to see MEP rough-ins. The lobby bathrooms are probably a week or so, maybe 2 weeks away from being opened. They're going to want to turn over those bathrooms so they could demo the other bathrooms ahead of the summer. So we'll still have two new bathrooms for staff. Interior sprinkler work is still going. Gypsum board has started. You can see it like the lower left photo, the kitchen hood's in, kitchen equipment, ductwork's all starting to go in. On the right, you can see where we have penetrations through the servery wall into the cafeteria for return air. Upcoming work there, they have a very aggressive schedule for the week of school vacation next week, including interior painting. They want to start working on the septic system pipes again. They've got the field complete and inspected. Transformer should be coming, maybe not next week, but within the next few weeks, which is a big hurdle to make sure we don't have to worry about that in the summer. Window installation will happen in the next few weeks. Main electric room rough end is going to start. Roof edges, and you should see a crane dropping the rooftop units in the next couple of weeks, according to their schedule. So they're showing a lot of progress. We still have a few submittals that we're waiting on that are still outstanding right now that we're working with them on. At Springbrook, it's a little, what happened up in the upper left there? It's still a little slow right now, but they're going to be speeding up soon. They're going to, they did the masonry above the media center. You can see in the upper right photo. We restored the masonry, and you can't see in the photo, but there's step flashing for where the new roof pitch is going to be. Second floor slab was finally poured. They waited on that because of the temperatures and the rain. Exterior framing's installed. Downspouts, you're going to see some of the roof work. I kind of threw this in here because I don't have an update on the overall Springbrook roof, but they have been doing some work. You know, we'll continue to see them doing work through the next few weeks. Structural steel's finally committed for, I think, 2 weeks from now, end of next week, maybe starting. Slab on grade at the media center, exterior metal studs, and then air vapor barrier, which I inspected part of it today, and then masonry. So they're gonna be flying on this pretty soon to catch up on this one. So we have change order 8 in front of you guys. I assume it was in your packet. Most of these are fairly straightforward, but I'll go through them and answer any questions you might have. Door hardware revisions, 42R2 was, we had added a door to the vestibule of the behavioral support room in order to isolate the classroom area from the timeout and cool down rooms. That was a request that somehow didn't get on the bid set. It was a request that was given to us during the time period, but for some reason it wasn't on the bid set. So that was for door and hardware on that. BDA design, that is the bi-directional antenna. That's the emergency response communication system. They submitted some costs for design services, which is we have an allowance for, where we started at 135,000. We're still at 123,000 to actually put the design into the building. So they need to do the design before they even knew what the scope was. So we have to figure out then what the cost of the scope is.
Could we just go back to the door hardware?
Yes.
The request came from where?
The special education director.
Okay, as long as.
And it came through the principal at the time. So it came through the channels properly, and I just when the contractor realized it was on the permit set but not on the bid set, we had to.
No, as long as the special ed director signed off.
Yes, yeah. They made a request too to have one of the doors locked going to the vestibule between the two long time ago kindergarten classrooms to prevent escapes, if you will, of the kids. Runners, yeah, that's what they're called. Change proposal 46 was for Springbrook administration area. There are a few areas in Springbrook admin lower left that still have the vinyl wall covering. We talked to Mark about this, and although they are starting to show their age on the seams, it's still in relatively good shape, and we didn't want to open the can of worms that we saw last summer at this time. So we asked for a credit to not paint those rooms, and that's what we got back to $2,500. Dunn's Corner water main change. The water main was on the drawings as a 2.5-inch pipe. It was only a 1.5-inch pipe, so we had to change the size to 2-inch to supply the kitchen. So there was a change in that. That was the 8,400. And then fire alarm revisions. Some of this is a few misses on my team's part. Some of it was requests from the AHJs, from the fire marshals for additional devices. So all in all, we're looking at a change order 24,446.17. And I just want to remind you, we didn't have a change order last month, so this is kind of 2 months combined together right now. So, anybody has any questions?
CES.
CES, yes.
So sometimes they sneak in their technical specifications, something like carrying 5 additional devices plus
Yes.
10 linear feet or whatever.
I can talk to you a little offline on that and the details, but we did go that route.
Yeah.
But it was more cost effective to use unit prices that were submitted by the general contractor. They weren't necessarily supported by the sub. So they're doing a little on the side negotiation that is not part of the town's.
And I understand this subcontractor is presented challenges.
Yes, yeah. This is the reason, these two are the reason that the supposedly that the submittal's been held up. We got one of them today, by the way. Just want to let you know that.
So we're going to use those unit prices at the end of the job to seek the credits that are part of the technical specifications.
I would love to do that.
All right.
Yeah. So if anybody has any other questions, otherwise I'd like to see if you guys can approve this change order so we can include it next month.
Any questions from members of the committee?
The Springbrook fire alarm, that was just was that because of the town fire, or was that?
Most of it was requests from Chief Mackey. There were some additional above ceiling devices. I believe there was also some, I think actually that was Dunn's, that he asked for some elevator, or that was Chief Bobola asked for the elevator sensors. But yeah, there was a few requests. And when I looked at the drawings and realized that we missed a couple pull stations, things like that, so.
Motion to approve.
Second?
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you. So I wanted to give you guys an update on where we are in contingency. Deb's not here, so I'm only going to report on this project. I do have a number from her remotely, but I can share with you. Our original contingency was $933,000. We added from the overall project contingency the $250 for the alternates that we had accepted in the beginning of the project. So our starting contingency was 1.18. We've approved through today, through your vote just now, 722,000. Without the alternates, that's putting us at about 2.79%. I just, for complete transparency, like the couple fire alarm devices that we missed, the design related ones are still at 0.64%. So just wanted to let you know about that. The remaining contingency for this project that was originally assigned in the RIDE documents is at 461,000 right now. The actual total contingency Deb had around, it was about 2.28 still at this point. I don't know the exact number now that this change order has come through. So I want to present two options to you guys. We've gotten a couple of requests from staff, and I want to bring that before the committee. The first one is, well, actually, there's a couple credits that we might want to pursue. Deb has recommended that we actually not pursue the soffits work at Dunn's due to the age of the building, of the material, rather than do the coating that we wanted to put on the stucco, and wanted to recommend pursuing some other more permanent solution, like a metal or something that would be more durable. I do have some reservations, to be completely transparent, but there is an identified scope of work in the future capital project that's currently in RIDE, stage 2 approval.
I think if we roll this thing out with a gleaming new school, those things still all over it, that's going to be the first place everyone's eyes go.
I don't disagree.
I don't think it's going to make any difference from a day-to-day functionality.
No, we showed its
first place
yeah.
everyone's eyes.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I think part of it is her concern, I believe, is just adding the scope of work to the contractor at this point. But the other part of it is we're a little concerned over who they've selected to do that work. We've discussed, and it's allowable in the contract to request that the contractor review other options for that subcontractor. But we would be on the hook for any change in cost. So
I would tend to agree that I think it's work that needs to be done as part of this process.
right, okay, thank you.
Whatever method you think is the best way to tackle it.
Yeah, I think we want to, my recommendation to this committee would be that the leadership group, talk to the contractor about maybe trying to find more a stucco, a mason, or a drive-it company, somebody that's actually does stucco repair rather than the painter, which is the way they priced it out. So we'll approach that tomorrow with the contractor. The other one that came up, I had a conversation briefly with Mark and Cindy via email, was that the coming town budget, is it for this year or next year? I don't remember, but there is an allotted amount of money.
Dunn's Corners in Springbrook is available.
Is available now.
And we have a request in for State Street that would be available
Next year.
July.
Okay.
Next year.
So I wanted to identify on the from the schedule values, the value of the playground equipment right now, which is about $210,000, give or take a little bit. I'm just estimating there. We have the ability through the budget, through where the money is appropriated in another fund, to pay for that in the project and recoup this money in the budget. I'd still recommend the contractor do the work because they've already bought the equipment. It's on order, it's coming, and they have it planned out for this summer. But we would be able to recoup some costs and pay it through another pot of money. So I don't think I need a vote on that. I just wanted to recommend to this group that you proceed with that.
So put that through the budget, and then essentially opens up a little bit more in the project, or
it would open up a little bit more available contingency, which I'm going to get to in a second.
Perfect. Okay. Yes.
So
because there are some value added
things that
are under consideration.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, I mean, the mechanism, it's currently owned in the.
We own it, and it can be paid with the bond, and it's no issue. But
so I mean, whether or not that 350,
it's like 230 per building, right? Now,
so
238.
460.
476, 390.
Yeah.
476, 390 goes to, goes into the overall. And don't we already encumber that amount in our global budget summary? I think that's one thing to.
That was in that second number, that 17 number, not the 16 number.
Yeah.
Okay. So, how we deal with the money to make sure it's all above table and everything, we'll make sure to do that. But there are a couple betterments that we've been requested by the committee, or by staff. We received a request from the Dunce Corner principal. She looked at the location of the new cafeteria and said there's no student toilets near the cafeteria. Our proposal, just to save costs, was not to add some bathrooms, and they would travel down to the other side of the gym, which is 130 feet away. And her concern is a valid one, that the kindergarten and younger kids would be walking alone that far during cafeteria time. I know that I see kids all the time walking down that corridor alone because they know where they're going. So I don't know what this committee's opinion is, but we came up with a proposal that the current dean's office, which is across the hall from the new proposed bathrooms. So the new bathrooms that are opening up in a week or two are here. There's a dean's office here that currently is unfilled. It's a vacant position currently. We could trench over there from the janitor's closet, and we already talked to the advisory group to do that work as a future proof now, because they're gonna actually do it next week during school vacation time. And then we've talked about the potential for about another 50,000 would be needed to do the bathrooms, because we need to ventilate, add all the plumbing, add all the fixtures, tile, doors, all that stuff. So we wanted to gauge the opinion of this committee and see if that's something they want us to pursue.
So little kids do walk that corridor, but during lunchtime, between the cafeteria and the changeovers and the lunches and main office traffic, and you're right by the main entrance to the building, it's a busy place. And I would support adding those kids' labs there myself.
I also think it gives you the ability to kind of block the rest of the building off and still have bathrooms available for whatever might go on nights or weekends in the cafeteria.
Yeah, we had the 2 adult ones, but this has 2 more kids height ones. These would be at the 15 height, not the little baby bowls for kindergarten, but
Well, yeah, if you have a family event cafeteria, it'd be ideal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in the past at the school, I almost said rabies clinic, but vaccination drives. I don't know why I was thinking that. Are held in the gym, and basically people that are in there have access to the rest of the building. The benefit of the placement of another multi-purpose space that could be available for public use, if it's not the gym, allows the ability to kind of have that section of the building only open with direct access to the outside and without having to have the rest of the building. So it makes sense from a programmatic standpoint as well.
Yeah.
So these are the type of things, and we're going to get to some door hardware modifications as well, that are where the project, notwithstanding some of the concerns about finishing on time and management of subcontractors, the projects are in very good shape in terms of where we are fiscally within our project budgets and what we have for available contingency. So these are the type of things that if the subcommittee feels that the value of them are at least from scope of work and a programmatic perspective, we can afford it in terms of providing these additions to these projects without putting any of the projects in jeopardy of a lack of additional contingency. I just want to make that statement that from where I think from a project management perspective, the project contingencies can support this type of all of the additions that we're going to discuss.
So, I'm sorry, do you mind just kind of walking through this might just be me, it's too small.
Yeah, it might be too small. So this
So the main entrance,
main entrance is right here now, and we have a lobby space and a corridor going to the cafeteria.
Yeah.
There are 2 bathrooms and a janitor's closet to serve for adult bathroom. These are the staff toilets that we've replaced for reload to blow the
those
blow
will
the
be
wall
in the
through.
new.
These are already there. They're going to be open in like a week.
Yeah.
And what we're saying is add just 2 student toilets, so you just have doors across from each other on that lobby corridor
So you
too.
have 4 toilets instead of 2.
Yeah,
This would allow
and the kids aren't allowed to use the adult toilets, right?
You want to separate the staff.
Yeah,
from-
no, I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just, yeah, that's a good, all right, that makes sense. I was, and that's the cafeteria on the left side.
Yes.
Okay, I got it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Is it right to say the cafeteria wall to wall is about 3/4 the size of the gymnasium?
I can give you the exact proportions. I don't know if it's over half, but I wouldn't be able to tell you exactly.
And that might not be a bad space for performances once in a while, and that table could just be moved quickly.
The tables could be folded up and rolled into the servery area or through the open door, and you just store them in the aisle where the kids would normally walk to serve. That's kind of what we anticipated if you had to empty the room.
Yeah, so again, a family event or a little concert or something with the labs right there would be great.
So what you're looking for is ratification of this, understanding that we don't have a formal PCO.
Yeah, I would say we've already got the 10,000 approved from the subgroup. So I would say not to exceed 50,000 for 2 new bathrooms at Dunn's Corner. And if it comes in at 55 and we have backup for that, we'll just ask for additional money at that point.
I'd make a motion to proceed, not to exceed $50,000 for 2 new kids' bathrooms right for the cafeteria. Second.
Okay. Motion made, seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, we'll let them know tomorrow and we'll get the paperwork on that.
Awesome.
The other one is a request that came from Mr. McKinnon.
I don't know why.
The base bid hardware and keying for this building, when you were discussing hardware changes last summer, we were very clear that we were only doing corridor work to secure the corridor space for your policy for safety and security. We did all the new areas and we did the classrooms and a few offices that are off the corridors. So the base bid didn't have 100% rekeying of the buildings. Mark, through diligent efforts on his part, walked with the hardware consultant that advised the district last summer, and the subcontractor that's providing the materials from Columbus Door. And they came up with a scope of work. I reviewed it, made a few tweaks for code, things that weren't considered, and then submitted it. And the costs are not small, but this is to rekey the entire facility, including a fair amount of hardware change. So you can see on the left-hand side bottom, that's an old unit lock, which is what's in Dunn's Corner. And so they need to have an armor plate and a new hardware in the upper left around the door. So there's some hardware that we have to buy along with this. I think you're already doing, you're also going to do, you're proposing a couple electric panic bars at Springbrook in the gym and cafeteria area. So there's some of that scope that's going along with the continued upgrade of the facility, and this will get rid of your 15 keys in each building or whatever it is.
Is there any concern of the longevity in any of the doors? Like, are we like putting something on a door that has issues, or is that?
I mean, the doors are 60 years old at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that they're made pretty well. You're not seeing major laminations of the veneer or anything like that. They're still in pretty decent shape. I've seen schools with a lot worse. I think Springbrook is not a concern. It's a 20-year-old, 25-year-old building.
Yeah.
Dunn's Corner, I think, if you're going into replacing doors, then you're going to be probably 2 or 3 times that amount.
Oh, I know, but I don't want to spend that if the doors need to be replaced anyway.
Yes.
You know, if we still have 10 to 20 years left, that's fine. But if we have,
I think most
this,
of it's still pretty serviceable.
But you can always relocate hardware.
Yeah, you could change the slab and yeah, move the hardware. Yeah. So
More problem with the exterior doors than interior. The ones that get propped open all the time, try to be shut in properly, they kind of get more prevent at the top. Those are the challenge. Those are handfuls that we can pick off through operation.
which you've actually replaced a bunch of them already. There's only a few original exterior doors left on Dunn's, for example, like the media center. I can think of one, but most of them you've already replaced with new aluminum.
so it's, you think you haven't had issues with the doors?
Yeah.
So yeah, that was the big.
One of the only issues we had is when we painted the doors is that some of them were sticking. So they had to work on actually prepping the door properly so that it wouldn't stick. But, so this amount, as you can see, Dunn's Corner is 87 and change, and Springbrook would be 55 and change. So it's a large number at 142, 821. But our rationale behind it would be that we would be looking at the offset from the playground money that's already in the town to kind of help pay for this. This still would leave you with a couple $100,000 contingency with this project alone, and still, close to 2 million overall on all the projects. So I'm not that concerned with it. One thing I would want to consider is the timing of this. If we give it to the contractor, it might be something that has to lag a little bit. This would be storage closets, a lot of these internal offices that might have to lag a bit just to keep them on schedule. I mean, as long as it's not life safety related, we could have them do it in September, October.
Mark, if you're looking at the capital priorities for these 2 schools, this is up there. Or if you had 142,000 for something else, would it be better?
Dunn's Corner?
Yeah.
Maybe. But what they're doing with only rekeying a third of the building, it creates a lot of problems for us. And this is going to keep us in line with the other capital project we did at the high school and the middle school.
Sure.
So now we have consistency throughout the entire.
So this might be the priority, yeah.
And when State Street comes online, they're going to be uniform with the rest of us.
I think it's work that needs to be done. Whether or not it's, there's an opportunity to encumber it as part of this overall project, have the management and the oversight over it through this project, rather than have it be a standalone project. So I'm supportive of this effort.
And I just thought of something that, the price came in that Columbus was actually doing the replacement themselves. It wasn't Tower. Tower was doing the other stuff. So it's actually a whole separate
They know
contractor.
their stuff.
Yeah, they can just go in with a card and just do it.
My only caveat is, can I get that piece of hardware when you take it off?
Yeah.
I want that with door knob.
Have that over a couple times over for you.
Yeah.
You could about 2 dozen of those.
We're gonna replace about 20 something of them, so.
One for each.
Yeah, I think they're, sounds like a win-win.
All right, so you're looking for a formal,
I would need a formal vote, because then I can approve these and put them in change order 9, that I can approve at the next meeting. I can give them authority to proceed, so they can order all the material.
I move that we approve the expenditure of 142,821.07 for the hardware changes at Dunn's and Springbrook.
Second.
all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? No.
Thank you. And that is it.
Okay, any other questions for the team here? Before we get on to the regular order of our business?
Do you need us here for the bills, probably?
We'll get right through them, but after that, we have some other business to go through, so you're free to leave. Next item on the agenda is approval of meeting minutes. You should have all received the minutes from our March 12th meeting. If there are no modifications to these, we'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, next item is item number 4, public comment. We have no members of the public here, so we will move on to approval of invoices. So I will, the caveat of, or the explainer again, is by the time we get invoices, they're already vetted from our consultant team and our owner's project manager. So if there are any questions regarding specific items, after the motion, I'll read the invoices. And if there are any questions, please ask them. And if they're not, we'll entertain a motion to approve each invoice independently. For the ones that are kind of grouped together by consultant, we'll take all the invoices as part of one motion. So the first invoice is for tower construction, application for payment number 9 for Dunn's Corner in Springbrook through March 31st, 2025, in the amount of $475,000.63, which represents a 49.5% of the total contract overall.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Motion carries unanimously. Next one, O&G Industries, application for payment number 7 for State Street Elementary School through March 31st, 2025, in the amount of $767,672.50. That was a tongue twister.
Motion to approve. Motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Next one is for Brewster Thornton Group Architects, invoice number 12486 for architectural and engineering services for RIDE Stage 2 WPS capital improvements 5-year plan for January 31st, 2025, in the amount of $230,601.30. So this more or less takes us up to almost to the Stage 2 application. Represents 69% of the total contract. I don't know, have we seen any comments from RIDE? Yeah. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Okay, next one for Prime Consulting Testing and Inspection Services for all 3 elementary schools through March 31st, 2025, in the total amount of $30,522, which includes invoice number 23187 for Dunn's Corner Elementary School in the amount of $14,226. Invoice number 23206 for State Street Elementary School in the amount of $10,428. And invoice number 23207 for Springbrook Elementary School in the amount of $5,868.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor? Any opposed? No. Downs Construction Company invoices number 19 for OPM services through March 2025 in the total amount of $24,670, which represent Dunn's Corner Elementary School in the amount of $7,160, Springbrook Elementary School in the amount of $7,160, and State Street Elementary School in the amount of $10,350.
Moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. No invoices from you guys this round?
My accounts payable, colleague had a baby, so
Okay.
we're behind by a few weeks.
Shouldn't be allowed.
Yes.
I'm kidding. All right. Is there anything that you guys are aware of that is missing from what we went over? We went over the action items for the the one change order and the two change order proposals. John, your team's gonna get some information back to us, but I think you have direction on what we're looking for.
Yeah, I have some stuff for the next meeting regarding the middle school roof. I don't have the information to share with this committee because it wasn't on the agenda.
So,
Next meeting is the 23rd.
Yeah.
okay. All right. Okay, see you guys then. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is capital projects update.
I have good news to share. The fire variance board agreed with our variance and we were approved. The AHJ and I, we met, we came together on a plan of action that we would put forward. Essentially saying that the 3 spaces in the front of the middle school auditorium, only 2 out of the 3 can be rented at one time. Which is really what we've been doing right now anyway. So everything worked out well there, and we're going to proceed with the vestibules as they are. We don't have to make any changes.
Excellent, well done.
Nice.
Great. Okay. Next item on the, anything else? Or any questions? Lesson learned, hold your fire marshal and building official close enough. Don't upset the apple cart. Okay. Next item on the agenda is subcommittee charter discussion, action, potential vote. I brought some hard copies of this. I sent, Mark, I didn't get a chance to go over these with you, so.
I did review them.
Okay. So I provided kind of the markup version from what the original, the changes that were to the original charter in the one that's highlighted in red. So just for those of you who are not familiar with how Microsoft Word does track changes, the areas that are stricken are items that are deleted. The items that are in red underlined are my additions or my attempt at additions for discussion. And then there's a clean version of how this reads afterwards. So maybe if I just went through and gave an overview of where my head was at in terms of some of the modifications. And this would only be a recommendation. It's the school committee that can craft this however they want. But the way that we have left it with the school committee is to propose some modifications for more or less a permanent school building committee. And it's even up for discussion of whether that's what it's called. It could be a facilities committee, however you may want it. So most of the language that was kind of stricken here was very specific to a major projects or the direction that this body went through in order to develop a plan for the elementary schools. So it started, so we removed in the objective of the committee to to complete both stage 1 and stage 2 of the RIDE necessity of school construction application. But we just added, so I'll go through each one of these one at a time. The first item that I added was just some language about assisting Westerly Public Schools in the evaluation of existing facility conditions and management of annual capital improvement expenditures, which more or less is what we've been doing. And I just figured that, you know, the two mechanisms that a building committee would evaluate is capital projects and major projects. So kind of keeping the building committee, you know, the scope of the building committee to allow for any type of major projects that may come up, but more or less be able to assist the district in kind of this kind of monthly or, you know, periodic review of capital plans, maintenance of a 5-year capital plan, et cetera. So that was the addition of number 2. And the modifications to item number 3 were more or less to kind of broaden the requirements for submission of documents. So prepare and submit the documents required for additional funding agencies, including the RIDE School Building Authority and available local and federal grant programs. So this covers kind of both RIDE, the RIDE submission process, but also any type of, you know, I think it would be beneficial to the town and the school committee and the district to explore, you know, any outside grant opportunities that may be coming up. So that kind of widens the lens a little bit for funding, and puts it kind of in, as I think when future projects come up that are recommended from this body, it would be, you know, it would be incumbent upon us to also discuss the funding mechanisms for it, either from capital or reimbursement or grant funding. So I guess what I'll do is just kind of go through everything, and then we can go back to the start and discuss any potential changes. So rather than instructions and guidance, rather than just focus on demographic reports and plan, just that planning should focus on the projected student population and existing facility conditions. So implicit in that is some idea of the demographics of the district that may or may not affect, you know, the amount of students that are in buildings, that may or may not affect potential future plans, configurations, but also evaluation of the existing facility conditions. Prioritization of capital improvements should be evaluated on a 5-year basis to include required scope of work, cost and funding projections, and schedule. So that's just basically language that's there to say, you know, we need to think on a 5-year horizon at the same time of putting, you know, the near-term projects as a priority. This is my personal, this next one, guidance for RIDE is available and should inform all work of the committee. It's just a semantic thing rather than guide all work of the committee. I took out the item for the Jacobs facilities report because at this point it's obsolete. It was from 2017, and the work that's recently been done is certainly more informative. Alternatives should include green design scenarios to achieve maximum reimbursement from RIDE. Cost analysis of scenarios should include long-term savings achieved with design features. I think that is implicit in other instructions and other ways or other things that are already part of the scope of work and don't necessarily need to be specifically identified. I felt that this was an instruction more for look at the elementary schools and pay attention to, you know, energy efficiency, et cetera.
That's going to be called out in any grant applications anyway.
Yeah. The committee should meet as many times as needed to complete its work, you know, rather than each stage. No change to item number 5. Item number 6, just some language to say the committee shall recommend engagement of outside consultants and or professionals to assist Westerly Public Schools in major projects and capital improvements. That's, you know, we can't go out and hire somebody, but we can recommend to the school committee hiring of consultants. So if we have this part of the recommendation is typically would mean that we evaluate the consultants and then make the recommendation to the school committee. As I was reading through this, I realized the next part of reporting and duties I have been delinquent on to the school committee. It had read that the building committee chair shall update the school committee at each regular meeting under subcommittee reports. So I just put the building committee chair shall update the school committee at periodic regular meetings under subcommittee reports as required or at the request of the school committee. The membership, just added some language. So the membership section, it seems appropriate to maintain the membership following the RIDE school construction regulations, just in case, because we are going to be, as part of submission to RIDE for stage 3 of capital improvements, they are going to be looking to building committee approval as well as school committee approval for these. So maintaining that, that representation makes sense. I just added some language that said at least 8 and no more than 12. We're at 12 now. I think you start getting a little out of whack when you start getting more people. That's open for discussion. Then I put some language in regarding some appointments. So if this is a standing, as I've mentioned in previous meetings, you know, we're ad hoc, so technically our terms are according to
just while we're talking about membership numbers, the only thing I might change is throw in some alternatives so that way your quorum becomes easier to hit. And then you have maybe 10 members, 2 alternatives or something like that. So you get easier quorum in the summers.
Yeah.
I don't know, that just semantics.
I think currently the school committee chooses an alternate from the school committee as well, in case the school committee member can't make it. Okay, so appointments, I took a stab at this. Just the school committee shall appoint / reappoint members to terms consisting of 4 years, staggered every 2 even-numbered years, and be limited consecutively to 2. It's kind of a mouthful, but I think it kind of, you know, this is really, to me, the pleasure of the school committee, but I do think that there needs to be some language in there for terms. It can either be.
Term limit there?
You're talking 8 years in total, so that's a long time.
I figured we didn't want to go beyond what the school committee is allowed to be elected, which currently is 4 years to 2 consecutive terms. So
just wanted to make sure you wasn't still doing this when you dated.
Considering I think this year will be 10 years since I was first nominated.
But Justin, if you're one of the required members per RIDE, like Mark McKinnon, who's gonna be here in 15 years, he'll still be on the committee for 15 years.
Yeah,
Right?
that's a good point. Yeah.
Glad you pointed that out. I should-
You're gonna be here for 20.
In 15 years, I will have been dead for 10.
It's called planning.
That's right. So no change really to the election of officers. Termination of building committee is just took out until the project is complete, leaving the language that it may be dissolved or terminated at any regular special meeting of the school committee. We tend to piss them off, and my apologies if at any time they feel the need to dissolve the committee, it's certainly their purview. The only language that I added to vacancies was in the event of a vacancy, the previous language just had the building committee chair will make a recommendation to the full school committee for appointment. I added superintendent of schools. I think it's entirely appropriate for Mark to have the same kind of nominating power that a chair might have.
So from a school committee standpoint, Mike, sorry, you think this works for the committee?
I think it works for the committee. I mean, I can't see anything that they object to. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty much what we are doing now and what we want to do.
Yeah.
The only thing I have, and it's nothing with, well, just in Redline, is the legal counsel. I think maybe one should be appointed. It doesn't necessarily have to be a new solicitor, but someone that we can contact. You know, what we know, we can contact them and they have a background to deal with the issues we're facing or would be facing.
Do you don't think the council that the school committee currently employs, that would fall under their agreement?
I think it may, but I think it'd be better to have language that says that that we can, instead of going to the school committee to the attorney, just go to the attorney to ask questions or get legal advice. Because as of right now, we have to probably have to go to the school committee for that information. That's just one layer that we don't need. That would slow things down.
Yeah.
I know in the past, when questions have come up, we just utilize the representation of the school committee.
Yeah, and I always have access to that attorney. I mean, I can just ask him straight out if he has any issue with addressing the concerns of the school building committee from time to time. And I'm pretty confident with the answer today. So I can ask him about that.
And I know when it comes to contracts that ultimately the town engages in, I think the town solicitor also reviews them. Did Connolly's office review our construction contracts? Or was that?
I think it was not known.
Okay, all right.
The only other thing is, as people term off the school committee or planning board, do they need to be replaced?
Yes. That's right, because we currently do not have a planning board member that's on the committee.
And you want to have at least 8 people, but then you have the composition, the membership composition beneath that. Do you want to have those hard numbers, or do you want to say at least one school committee member? I mean, it looks like we're not allowed to have 2 school committee members on the project. Is that by design?
Well, I think maybe the language, because the 8 people that are identified, the 8 kind of categories of people that are identified are what compose the requirements for a building committee for RIDE. So perhaps there's language that should consist of, at minimum, the following members. So the way that would, maybe we take out the no more than 12 and just.
Or just take out the numbers next to the titles.
Yeah. Yep. I would add superintendent of schools and director of building maintenance to be permanent member. Like, just because you're right, you're not subject to, you wouldn't be subject to the terms according to a RIDE thing.
Right.
When I was reading that, I was like, somebody on the committee has to be a facility director.
That's ambiguous in the way that this charter is written, but it's not ambiguous according to RIDE. It's supposed to be the facilities director of the district. It's supposed to be you.
Nice try.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
It's close to the wind in their backs.
Who else is going to advocate for a boom lift? Chris has all kinds of
Not a 60-footer.
Yeah, I was going to say, as soon as he said 60, I heard you kind of go, ooh.
I mean, I think this is great. I don't think there's anything else.
I think it's just what the school committee wants to see happen.
Yeah. But at least this would, if we make these modifications, I think this would at least give them the ability to have a framework to review.
Yeah, they want further changes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll make semantic changes, but I don't think they
yeah, I mean, the sentence about the terms is, you have to follow it to understand it. And I recognized it as, I'm writing it, I'm like, this makes sense to me, but boy, it's a pretty circular thing. Okay, anything in the kind of objective or the instructions or guidance, that you would like to see added? Or I think the goal here is to make this kind of encompassing, but also vague in a way that allows some deference to the conditions of the schools and the buildings. So what do you guys want to do? You want to see this updated for kind of one final pass at the next meeting?
Yeah, I think that'd be great, yeah. Let us think about it a little bit.
Okay.
Just some minor tweaks, though.
Okay. Good. Okay, so that would be put for next steps. The other thing, I don't know if I updated the committee at the last meeting, or if, how many, do we meet with tower construction after the last building committee meeting?
There's one of the
Maybe I should read the minutes to see if I went over it. Okay, well, nonetheless, I think it was after. About 3 weeks ago, we had a meeting here on a Friday with, when I say we, I mean the representatives of tower construction, Ashley, Deb, myself, Dr. Garceau, Mark, and the town manager. Basically to say, hey, we've had some challenges, but you have enough time in front of you to make sure that you're completing on time. The schedule that they showed the completion. And I think we left the meeting with, I think, better understanding where they sat, and also what the town's expectations are for them finishing strong on these two projects. At that meeting, we made a commitment to meet at the end of April or the beginning of May, and then at the end of May, beginning of June, in order to be able to evaluate at that June meeting to make sure that we're still on track to finish those projects substantial completion for the start of school. The reason why we wanted to have 2 following meetings with them was to course correct if we needed to in the May meeting, but then have a real hard understanding of what's left to be done and what's achievable at the 1st of June meeting. The reason being that we want to make sure that if we need to notify anybody about things that are still going to need to be completed at Dunstan Springbrook at the start of school, that we're able to communicate that before everybody goes on summer break. At this time, I remain optimistic and convinced, but I think everybody's picked up some of the challenges in past reporting by the OPM and the architect regarding these being 2 pretty challenging projects. So it was necessary to hold this kind of come to Jesus meeting with the contractor, just so that, and we were clear in the meeting that if there are any obstacles that are in your way to completing, we need to know so that we as an owner can remove those obstacles and allow you to finish strong. So I'm happy to report that meeting went well, and there's still some lingering items that Ashley is chasing, but we put 2 additional checkpoints in place to make sure that we have the same people. And Tower came in with, 6 people that were part of the project team. So we have their attention, and they know that we're rooting for them. And I just wanted to report that back to the committee. Any questions on that one? Okay. Anything else for next steps that you guys want to see at upcoming meetings? So we are going to meet for the second meeting in April, which is the 23rd. Everybody has a good Easter. I learned this week, does anybody know how we arrive at the Easter day? Because sometimes it's at like the end of March.
3 days after Jesus was killed.
It is the first Sunday after the first full moon, after the first day of spring.
Oh, I didn't know that. No, that's-
Because next year it's like April 5th.
Yeah.
It's way.
Yeah, we all know, we all celebrate Jesus' birthday on the same day every year, but the resurrection is according to the lunar calendar, apparently. Okay, so we'll plan on meeting April 23rd. That puts our following meeting, May 14th. At that time, we'll evaluate whether or not we need the second meeting in May. For the time being, I think it's probably safe to assume that we'll be holding 2 meetings a month over the summer. And my apologies in advance for that, but as 2 projects are wrapping up, we need to at least have the expectation that we may need to have some action items at any of those meetings. Okay. Anything else that the committee would like to see moving forward? Okay. Continue to have no members of the public for public comment, so we'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.